Welcome to Her Own Boss, the podcast designed to help you find your inner entrepreneur. Her Own Boss is created by Anissa, Megan, Ben, Sarah, Nikki, and me, Lucy, as we start our careers and learn from the inspiring women who can help us along the way.
Hello everyone, this is Nikki, and today we're speaking to Florence Adepoju. Flo is a cosmetic scientist and the founder of MDM Flo, a brand of makeup products which combines Flo's passions for beauty, fashion, science, and 90s hip hop. We ask Flo all about how she went from making lipsticks in her parents' garage to selling products in international retailers like Harvey Nichols, Colette, Topshop, and Nasty Gal. This episode is also extra special because I get to co-host with Lucy, Her Own Boss podcast co-founder, one of the brains behind our social media, and fellow makeup enthusiast. Enjoy!
This episode is sponsored both by Rise, created by Barclays, and Barclays Eagle Labs. Rise and Eagle Labs are on a mission to support female founders shape the future of entrepreneurship by providing access to networks, mentorship, and training. Search Rise, created by Barclays, or Barclays Eagle Labs to find out more.
Hi, Flo.
Hey.
Welcome to the podcast, and special welcome as well to Lucy, who works on the Her Own Boss team, but this is her first time co-hosting on the podcast, so welcome, Lucy.
Thank you, Nikki.
Oh, I'm glad to be your first episode, Lucy.
Yeah, so you are actually my first ever podcast guest.
Amazing.
Love it. Okay, so to kick off, I've got 3 icebreaker questions for you, Flo. Just the idea is to answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. So, question 1, if you could live in any country, what one would it be?
Right now, I would live in Nigeria, which is where my parents are from, because I think not being able to travel for the last year just kind of makes me want to just know more about my heritage and my background.
Yeah, definitely. And the second one, sweet or savory?
Oh, sweet all the way.
Same. And then the last one is, what's your favorite makeup brand that isn't your own?
I would say Makeup Revolution.
I love Makeup Revolution.
Yeah, I think they're the most exciting brand out right now, or British brand anyway.
Yeah. Except for yours, of course.
Except for mine.
That's the big caveat. That's the big caveat.
So I'm a big fangirl, though, and also a big beauty fanatic. And the one thing that I really wanted to ask you to kind of kick us off is why the beauty industry? Because the beauty industry, as you'll know, is so saturated, and you have new brands coming out of the woodworks every single month now. You've got celebrities like Lady Gaga, J-Lo, Selena Gomez. They've all come out with new makeup brands. It's just such a saturated industry. And so for me, I was thinking that if I ever wanted to launch a makeup brand, it would almost be off-putting because of how saturated it is. And so I wanted to ask you, why you decided to go into the industry and where your passion for it stems from.
That's such a good question. I would say that in some ways the beauty industry chose me. My career started so young. I got my first job, not in the beauty industry, but just my first job in life, around the age of 14. But I think my first job in the beauty industry was on a makeup counter. I really loved it. I loved how working in beauty made you feel like it was, because before that I'd worked as a sales assistant for Debenhams. I'm sad to see Debenhams go. In the men's department, I'd worked at Sports Direct. I'd worked in other places that I just felt like I'm just a service provider, but working in the beauty industry was the first role that made me feel like an expert, even though I was just a sales advisor. But the amount of information, and even then the community around beauty, people wanting to know more about a product, how you use it functionally, whether it's suitable for them. I didn't really see that in any other industry. And prior to getting into beauty, I was meant to become a pharmacist or a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. But I had done work experience at a pharmacy, and it just wasn't the same. It wasn't exciting. I was bored every day, and I was like, the difference between how I feel when I'm on the counter and how I feel in the pharmacy, I want more of this. This feels good. So yeah, I definitely would say that it was something that I was kind of like called to just because of how great of an environment it was working in the beauty industry all those years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And when did you know like that you weren't going to have a career in pharmacy? Like that definitely wasn't for you. And like what kind of made you think or push you to go into the kind of the makeup world?
Well, I kind of wish I had known earlier because by the time I kind of had that realization, I already had applied to study pharmacy at uni. I had all these places that were secured, and I just had this like weird moment of I just want to do something that I enjoy. And I think the difficult thing for me was I didn't obviously like I was doing scientific A levels because I thought I was going to go down this kind of like very medical field. And I didn't even know that the course that I ended up doing, cosmetic science, even existed. So in kind of like applying for pharmacy thinking, oh, it's a great career, it's a great industry, people get paid well, but at the same time trying to figure out like how do I replicate this in the beauty industry. And I was working for Benefit Cosmetics, and I remember I went to a training session at the head office, and they were talking about how their fragrances were made. I'm not sure if they still do fragrances now, but at the time, and I remember just thinking, what? There's someone who like sits in a lab and makes perfume? Like that's crazy. Um, and off the back of that and doing more research into that is how I found out about cosmetic science, and I was able to kind of in the last moment apply to study cosmetic science at London College of Fashion and really fully immerse. But yeah, it was at the time it felt like so tricky, and I'm kind of glad that now we live in a world where there's just so much more information. Like I get students messaging me every day and I'm like, if you want to do it, just do it. Like don't even waste time going any further down the cycle of a career that you're not interested in.
Yeah, I really can genuinely really relate to that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you're saying. And I think a lot of people can relate to this thought of not knowing what you want to do. So you kind of pick the easiest or most obvious option. And then you get to a point where you're like, what?
Mm,
I don't know, I feel really thick when I say it, but I feel like I didn't even realize that there were cosmetic scientists and people that were doing the science behind the makeup. I think for
mm,
me, so I was sharing with Lucy before we started recording, I got really into makeup when I was like 14, 15, 16 through YouTube. And then I went off makeup. And then now I see it as like an art form because Lucy, she has a makeup Instagram. It's amazing. She does some incredible stuff. And then I feel like I started watching Drag Race around the same time. And I was like, wow, this is pure art. And so I think thinking about the fact that there's like science behind it and all these other jobs and kind of functions is really, really fascinating. Once you realized that there was like the science behind makeup, did you immediately know that's what you wanted, or did it just kind of generally open your mind and you started to look for different opportunities?
So literally the moment I discovered you could study cosmetic science, I literally felt like I had like a eureka moment and I was like, this is what I'm meant to do with my life. And I did absolutely everything I could to make sure, like I remember getting to the point where, because I had applied so late, and they were like, so what are you gonna do if you don't get on? And I was like, well, I'm just gonna take a gap year and apply again next year because I really felt like this is something that I need to do, and I felt like such a strong like calling to the industry. And even till this day, like even in running my business, like it's not the same as I thought it would be in terms of I thought I'd just be like in the lab every day, mixing, and now I'm doing so many other things, but I definitely like 100% think I did the right thing and went down the right path.
Mhm. And when you, I guess, started studying, or even maybe towards the end of your degree, did you have any sort of plan or foresee where you would be now? Um, and I mean, I don't know, for people that don't know, you kind of started MDM Flow in your parents' shed.
Yeah.
When you did that, were you just doing that as a project, or were you like, I want to have my own makeup brand and I want it to be as big as it is now?
So I would say when I started my degree, hell no, I wish I was that genius that was like, yeah, this is the plan, we're gonna do the degree, then we're gonna open the lab shed and everything, is gonna come. But no, I didn't. And I think part of it was when I went in, I almost felt like it was overwhelming. I was like, okay, so I'm here now. Like I'd spent so much energy just trying to get onto the degree that by the time I got on, I was just like, okay, so now it opens me up into this like world of the beauty industry, like what do I want to do? So I had this feeling of what do I want to do again. And I think one of the great things that I did because I didn't know where I wanted to really land because I tried so many different things. And I worked in PR, I hated it. Um, I worked as a marketing assistant for a year. I lived in Belgium for a year as part of my degree and did this marketing assisting role, and absolutely loved living in Belgium. Wasn't so crazy about the role. I worked on like practically every makeup counter. Like I remember there was a point where I'd worked on pretty much all the makeup counters in Oxford Circus, which is like the main shopping street in London. And I think working for so many different brands just made me realize what I wanted to see in the industry because, and I think most people have it with a lot of things, whatever you're passionate about. Like if you're passionate about clothing, you'll go clothes shopping and be like, this is not the perfect outfit, just needs this finishing piece. Or if you're really into food, you'll be like, oh, when you're eating at a restaurant, it just needs this like final flavor to bring everything together. And that's how I always felt when I was working for these other brands. And so I think that planted the seed of maybe I need to like do my own thing. And by the end of my degree in my final year where I was putting together my dissertation, like slowly it kind of turned from like a dissertation on like color perception and how color makes like people feel and like this kind of sensory thing to I want this to be my business. More so at the end of my degree, I had that intention. And even then, it was like a bit haphazard. I just assumed my uni wouldn't allow me to use their facilities. And they were like, no, we have other students. So then that is what pushed me to like creating a lab at home in my shed and starting to build from there. But every step of the way, there's just been a learning. And even through running the business, like I had no clue when I started it that it would go the way it has gone. But it's just kind of like with every stage, just kind of like figuring it out.
Mm-hmm. And it is like such a success story because you came from such humble beginnings, in the shed, and now it's grown so much, and it's really like a brand that people love and need. And when did you realize that you had like grown out of the shed, and like when did you know that it was the kind of right time to take it to the next level?
That is a good question. Lucy, you're coming with some really good questions today. I think it's just growth. I think your business just gets to a point where like you just have to change how you're working because it's just not like suitable anymore. I wish I could say it's just been like an upward trajectory, but it's really been like up and down. And I've had massive peaks where at points where I was hand making everything and I was like, if I make any more lipsticks, my fingers are literally going to drop off. It hurts to like making this hurts to ordering thousands of units of stock and being like, this stock is not moving fast enough. I think you just kind of have to just go with it. And there's been times where I've gone into manufacturing and I'm like, actually the lab touch is missing. And so even now, like I'm in my studio right now and we have a lab section downstairs where we do make limited edition colors. And we do like we are also working on a skincare line, Flow Beauty Co. And like majority of the Flow Beauty Co. products are handmade. And obviously it's not in the shed anymore, but it still has that kind of like handmade feel to it. And I can only do that because I had that journey with MDM Flow. But yeah, no, it basically is just responding to the market and responding to how the brand grows.
Yeah, I absolutely love that about your brand. Like, I follow you on Instagram, and I love the videos where you can see you like pouring the lipsticks like into their cases and like the glosses into like their cases. And I think it's like so nice because I love brands that you like when you buy into the person behind it. I think they're the brands which you can resonate with the most and the ones that you always have like the biggest attachment with.
I agree. I completely agree with what Lucy just said as well. I think having a personal touch behind your brand is so key for getting kind of consumer buy-in. But how do you keep that personal touch while also growing? So I suppose, when you moved out of the shed, how did you, afford to kind of move to a bigger space or pay someone else to do it? And then once you start outsourcing, how do you make sure that you are still the brand and you have control and can do the testing that you want to do?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the great things about like social media and the internet as it is right now is just how open and transparent you can be. And that's something that I have been since the beginning of the brand. And I remember in the early days, people saying to me like, you know, you're chatting to your followers and you're letting them know that it's you speaking to them. You know, as a brand, you should have a customer service rep. And I'm like, but that's dumb because it isn't me speaking to them. So, whereas now it's like, oh, great, you know, you're the founder and you're the one like speaking to us and responding to us and like having this personal touch. And I think just bringing people along by just being as open and as honest as you can, it makes it so easy. Like if you're being honest about what you do, then you don't really have to have a strategy around connecting with your customers. And when it comes to growth, I just see it as the community getting bigger. Like it's gone from like a really small community of early customers who knew about the brand to, like, thankfully through the press that we've had and through some of the partnerships we've done, like more and more people discovering the brand. But to me, the people who are discovering it, they want to see what the person who told them about it saw and fell in love with. They don't want to see like some grandiose version of, you know, this kind of super sleek brand where like every time you see me it's because I've, you know, done this glamorous photo shoot. And we all know those brands, like these kind of classic beauty brands, and a lot of them are amazing, but we just don't feel any personal connection to them because everything is so glossy. Whereas there's brands that I'm like falling in love with and it's literally just someone at home like squeezing glitter into a pot, and that's just awesome. Like I'm obsessed with these like YouTubers that, you know, show their like sterile lab environment and then putting on their gloves and sterilizing their equipment and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, with a bigger brand, I don't get to see that. I only get to see like how a smaller brand is adapting and changing in these times. And I think like, if anything, like the beauty industry has followed a lot of the COVID guidelines, like pretty much for the last like couple of decades anyway. So we're kind of like, you know, we've got our lab coats on and we're all set up in that way. But as a customer, you just don't know that until you actually physically see it.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that we're all kind of getting better at like shopping at small businesses, and you can see so many businesses have popped up in the last year of, you know, people at home just thinking, well, you know what, I've got time and I have a talent or I have a passion. And it's just so cool, I think, to be able to see that whole process from start to finish.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm all for it. I absolutely love it. And I think also it's great that like the barriers to entry are down. And like I said, I love that I studied cosmetic science, but maybe in 2021, a 17-year-old me wouldn't have studied cosmetic science and would have just created a brand because I would have watched a video on YouTube on how to do it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I guess going back to your growth then, I feel like there are so many ways you can kind of measure growth and measure success, whether that's, you know, the number of customers you have or how many sales you do, revenue, or even just like your product line. How do you kind of measure that success and how do you prioritize growth when you're thinking about your business plans?
Yeah, sure. So I think like as a small business, like growth is everything. And I think like obviously numbers are great, but there's so many different ways to grow your numbers. So I think for me, like relevance and how people are speaking about the brand is something that I'm really like, I'm always kind of doing this like social listening. Like I want people to be excited about the brand. I want people to be excited about the products in our range, how people like share like their personal usage, because I'm like, okay, that means that I'm creating a brand that is gonna like stand the test of time. Because we like Giants 4, like just last week, Becca announced that they're closing permanently. So it goes to show like you can be one of the biggest brands in the world, but if you lose that kind of relevance, it can be very difficult to continue to exist. So I think, yeah, like obviously you have to pay attention to the numbers and you have to know that like units are moving and you need to have like your back end all set up. But more than anything, like whatever it is that you're creating, people have to genuinely love it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Speaking of giants, and I'm sure you get this question all the time, so I hope I can ask it in a slightly more interesting way. But I have to bring up Fenty here. And
Oh yeah.
I love how your face is just like, yeah, go on. Hit me with it.
No, I love being asked about Fenty.
So I heard in one of your previous interviews that you gave, you kind of referenced that you see Fenty less as a competitor, but more as kind of a validator. And I was wondering if you could expand on that, because I think that's such an interesting concept that as, small business owners or people who are just starting out, you shouldn't see the giants come in and think, okay, I'm just going to not because what's the point? But instead see it as a validation that you're
Yeah.
actually good enough and kind of use that to drive you.
Definitely. And like what I always use to explain this concept is music, right? When you hear a new artist, you don't think, oh my goodness, there's so much pop music out. There is no space for this artist to release new music. No, you're like, no, this music is epic. And who is this artist? And I think the same thing happens with product discovery. Like if someone sees a product that they love, or looks cool, or their friends using it and their friends just going off about this amazing product, they're not going to be like, no, like Fenty has like 30 lipsticks, I don't have space for another brand. They're going to be like, okay, cool, no, let me check out that MDM flow. When it comes to validation, the more brands that exist within a space, the more opportunities there are going to be for the brands. I had such a difficult time getting, especially mass retailers in the early days, to even understand that there could be a brand that was this bright and this bold and this cool. And obviously, Rihanna creating something of that effect and it doing so well actually says, yes, there is space in the market. And even with everything that Fenty has done, I still don't think a lot of like beauty industry gatekeepers or retailers really still understand where the market is going. But I also think the other exciting thing is now, again, through social media and through us being more connected, is that people really can make that choice themselves. So for me, I'm like, if you want to create a brand that is really cool, that is really bright, and that is really bold, like go and do it. But it shows that the industry is moving in a specific way, and people are maybe going away from this kind of like natural bronze look to maybe something a bit more brighter and bolder. But just knowing that like the industry is always moving, and it's just about creating something that's really cool. As long as you're creating something that's cool that people love, there's always going to be space for you. And a new brand is built every day that is going to be the lion.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think that's applicable in like every industry, to be honest. I really love how our generation is shaping industries for the better and making them more inclusive. Like I really do think that's so, so positive. You mentioned that you find it difficult to kind of convince mass retailers with your product. And I'm quite interested from a growth perspective. That's like so cool that like you're selling in like huge retailers and around the world, like I believe, not just in the UK. And what would be really cool to know is like how did you make that happen? Did you cold call like retailers? Who did you speak to, or did you wait for an introduction?
Oh no, you can never wait for anything. Most of the opportunities I've gotten is literally from like knocking on the door and then knocking and then literally like emailing people until they say, we're not interested. And even when they say, I've had retailers that have said that they're not interested and have come around the next year and been like, you know what, we want to pay some attention to this brand. And like I always say, like in this industry, it's pretty much just about existing. As long as you continue to exist, like everyone who has ignored you to a certain point is going to pay attention to you. But the moment where you're like, oh, do you know what? I got to know, and it's really affected me, and I don't want to do this anymore, which is a very real feeling that even I have had, but you just cannot like feed the fear. You just have to be like, okay, maybe I need to sleep or have a day off, and then just kind of get back into it. Then you get your first yes, and then maybe a couple of weeks later you get your second yes, and then just kind of like builds bigger and bigger as you build up momentum. And so that's the thing. I think it's just going, like pacing it, and just getting to the point where you're building momentum. And for me, it just got to the point where retailers were getting in touch with me because I was making enough noise. And just even with that, knowing that you have your peaks, then you have your quiet seasons, then you have your peaks again.
Yeah, I think it is just about resilience, really, isn't it?
That's the perfect word.
And quite a few of our followers on Instagram have contacted us asking us if they have any tips, like of how to actually practically grow. And it'd be interesting. How did you know who to contact in these like mass retailers? And did you provide some sort of like pitch deck, or was it just like a video call? It'd be quite interesting to know the journey with that?
So I definitely would say it's just a like trial and error. So at first I contacted everybody, anyone's contact that I could get. Then I realized that okay, like I want to make sure that I'm getting to the right department. So like whether that be color cosmetics or with Flow Beauty Co skincare, and wellness as well. And then once I'm in that department, knowing that okay, there's a senior buyer and there's a junior buyer, and then there's probably the buying assistant. And sometimes you think, oh, I want to get to the most senior person. But one thing I've realized is that like the assistant and the junior buyer always become senior, if not in that retailer, maybe somewhere else. So making sure that you're developing relationships on both ends and knowing that it could be the junior buyer that's like, do you know what, let's give this brand a chance, or kind of notice that you're onto something, or it could be the senior buyer. So you just kind of have to like play it both ways and not being afraid to like get on the phone if you're not getting a response to your email, and just also understanding that in your process you're going to have a lot of rejection. And I remember for me it got to a point where it was like, if I email 10 people and only one person gets back to me, then I need to email 50 people to get 5 responses. And you just kind of see it like gamify it almost, as opposed to like taking every single like rejection as personal.
Yeah, there's such good tips. I think as a millennial, we all hate to pick up the phone and actually call people. Like for me, I'd have to spend like 1,000 emails. I could not talk to them.
Literally, it's like, what do you mean you're not on WhatsApp?
Exactly. Find me on Slack.
No, literally. But you have to think of it as like, if no one's calling and you're the person who's calling, you're going to be the one who's remembered.
True.
That's so true. That's so true. Such a good tip. And I like the tip about not always just going straight for the senior person, because my instinct probably would have been to say like, you know, find CEO at company.com and like go for it. But you know, the people who are junior, they make decisions too, and they kind of grow into the more senior roles. So I love that.
Definitely.
And can we like name drop some of the retailers that you're in? Because there are so many huge ones, and like Lucy said, around the world, I don't even know if I can remember them. I've got like Harvey Nichols, Colette, and Mecca off the top of my head.
Yeah, those are the ones that I love the most. Forget about the others. No, don't forget about the others. Yeah, no, those are
sorry to all other retailers listening.
Those are my favorite. And Colette was getting into Colette. So Colette actually is an exception to the rule, because I actually emailed Sarah, the owner. Well, I sent her a package actually, because I read in a magazine that she loved receiving packages from small brands. And she emailed me and she was like, I'd like to make an order. And she's one of the only retailers that literally would pay me up front. So she'd make an order and literally like pay me straight away. And I'm like, this is heaven. So shout out to amazing companies like Colette that really, really help small brands.
Love that. That's such a good point, actually. Once you've kind of got a foot in the door, how do you then negotiate, you know, what you want in terms of orders, but also payment? You know, I imagine that must be quite difficult as the small business going to a massive retailer.
Oh, it's so hard, and like with that as well, it depends on where you're at. Like I wouldn't really tell anyone, you know, make sure you get the best deal, because when you're really small, sometimes you just need to get in the door. And even now, like I'm about coming up to a decade in the beauty industry, or probably more than a decade in the beauty industry, and 8 years into running my business. And even now, I still kind of get like a tight knot in my stomach when I'm asking for payment up front from a retailer, even with X amount of years of experience, because they can turn around and say no. And don't be afraid to be honest. Like a lot of retailers have worked with a lot of small brands, so they know where you're at, and not all of them are going to be graceful. In fact, most of them are not going to be graceful to you, and they're just going to be like, well, you have to just figure out how to make this order without me paying you until like 90 days after I receive it. But the odd ones are going to be like, do you know what? Yeah, we really believe in what you're creating, and we're going to try and, you know, be flexible and help you out.
Amazing. So what's next for your beauty brand? Are you wanting to go into like more of like a mainstream brand, or are you quite keen to keep it indie?
So with MDM Flow, like that is such a good question, because we're constantly changing our offering, changing what we want the brand to be about. So at the beginning, it was like quite exclusive. Our products are very expensive. Then we were like, you know, the beauty industry is an inclusive place, and we want to be a part of that. And also the brand is growing, so we can afford to bring our prices down a bit. So that's been something that's been very key for us. everything that's happened with COVID-19 has kind of accelerated the industry in so many ways. And also it's put pressure on retail in the sense that stores aren't allowing you to test makeup in store, and it's made the online experience more of a vital thing for makeup, and also people kind of trust buying makeup online a lot more. So a lot of the planning we're doing for the future now is just really thinking about like where the industry's at and how we can again create something that is super relevant, that is super useful to our customers, but we're not basing things on how the world was pre-COVID, but we're actually being reactive and responsive to all the changes that are happening in the world right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that like AI has become like a huge thing in the beauty industry right now. Like on Snapchat, a beauty brand, they had like a filter with their makeup on it, and it would apply to your face. I thought that was so clever. And Barry M are doing it with nail polish, and you can just like click on a link and buy the polish instantly. It's so clever. It's quite exciting to see what will happen to the industry like moving forward after COVID.
Definitely.
I didn't even know that. That shows how like out of touch I am with like beauty and makeup. I feel like I've not done a full face in literally a year, actually, now that we're in March.
My skin has never been so clear. I've given it a proper rest.
Yeah, literally. I think I can count on one hand how many times I've done a full face, which is crazy because I used to have a full face pretty much every day.
Well, June 2021, we're all buying an MDM Flow lipstick and we're getting out there.
Yes.
That is a shameless plug. So I wanted to ask you as well, Flo, what's next for you on, I guess, more of a personal level? Because I feel like you have been so successful at such a young age and you've inspired so many women. You know, Lucy and I have been fangirling for the last like 45 minutes, no big deal. You know, and kind of despite all those challenges you've described, you've kind of like pushed through it. So I'd love to know what your plans are next and how you plan to like keep going.
Well, yesterday I turned 30, so I was like, okay, now I'm entering my 30s, thank you. And so that's made me just kind of like really reflect on what I want for like the next decade of my career, because I definitely think like I am the more confident and more experienced version of the 20-year-old me. And so I definitely want to see the future of my career being more about like giving back and opening the doors for other people who are entering the industry, working on some of my kind of wilder and crazier ideas that perhaps I didn't have the confidence to do when I first began, when I was 22, just a little baby. And just kind of, I guess, just being more Flow, like being as me as possible. And just everyone's like, oh, you know, like there's just so much kind of like freedom in your 30s. You don't really care about how like what people think of you and all this kind of stuff. So I'm just really interested and excited to see what comes out in terms of like the direction of the brands and also the products that we put out, just knowing that I can fully like be myself and I have a little bit of, you know, history to back up the things that I decide to create.
I love that. Wow. Can't wait until I'm 30. When you said 22 there, Lucy and I are looking at each other like, oh, what have we done?
But at the same time, like there's no pressure because some of my favorite entrepreneurs literally began at 30. Some even began at 40. So I think like Forbes kind of like corrupted us all with this like 30 under 30 obsession. But really, actually, the more kind of life experience you have, the better whatever you put out is going to be.
It's so funny you say that because I actually saw a meme yesterday that was like, we have to start normalizing living our dreams when we're in our 30s. But there's this big, like, you know, there's this big thing like, oh, everyone needs to do everything that they want in their 20s. When actually that's when you kind of learn, so you're able to do it.
Literally.
So, yeah.
Culture makes us feel like, oh, you know, everyone who's doing anything exciting is doing it in their 20s. And it's like, actually, no. The reason why we go crazy about the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world is because there's so few of them. And most people are actually creating really exciting things later on in their career.
So true. That's such a good point. But let's start talking about the Flo Adepojus of the world and less about the Mark Zuckerbergs, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We need some more ladies in here.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Right. We end every episode with the same question. Lucy, do you want to ask it as this is your debut?
I do want to ask it. I've always wanted to ask it. What gives you confidence?
What gives me confidence? I think waking up every day and creating something for other people and just getting that feedback gives me confidence. Like getting DMs from other women who are inspired or empowered or just are gushing because they just love something that I've come up with or created. Like it literally makes me feel so awesome and so confident.
Amazing. What a lovely way to end the podcast.
Thank you so much for coming on. We've loved it.
Thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can find out more about Her Own Boss at heronboss.co.uk or by searching for us on LinkedIn and Instagram.